Tiresome Realignment Tropes. This was a group aggregated here, Craig, before you got to the studio today, top 5. I was having trouble. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I can give you 5 top 1s, but they're not all the same topic. So I can't, it's not the top 1, and it's not 5 top 1s. So I needed some help today. So we went in a group today, and these are the things that realignment has kind of got a little exhausting with. So number 5, it's kind of exhausting because when you look at the end of this, who's the real winner in all of this? And it's really, Disney and Fox. Do we, maybe we'll get some better games on TV. It'll be fun for us for a little while. But in the end, do we the fans win in all this? I don't know. I think at best we break even.
I don't think that they have the fans in mind, guys.
No, they don't.
I don't know why we'd think otherwise at this point. Because if it was a fan thing, then guess what? They would have just passed 9 SEC games starting in 2024. The real winner are the TV companies, and also, eventually the student athletes as well, or the football players, whatever they're going to be referred to as full-time employees whenever that happens here in the next few years. And they're making, consistent money. They'll be winners in all of this. The athletes, at least in football and men's basketball, and how far beyond that as a whole remains to be seen. But yeah, it's not designed for if it was designed for the fans in mind, then why the hell is USC and UCLA going to play most of their games across the other side of the country?
Yeah.
We're not involved in the decision making, I don't believe. But hey, you'll get probably more fans to show up to the Coliseum to see Michigan come in as a regular season opponent than maybe you would others, and so it makes up for some of that in some ways. But yeah, it's the people who make the money. That's who wins. So the TV networks, the schools themselves, and the athletic programs, and then it trickles on down to the athletes themselves. But to what extent still remains to be seen. But yeah, it's definitely not a prize for the fans at the end of the road, I don't believe.
Yep. Number 4. Reckless speculation. Now, look, I love each and every one of you who emails me or sends me a DM, but sometimes it gets hard to kind of explain why, so-and-so state does not make sense in this conference, and why, in spite of your best efforts to explain it, it would. Because, again, you got to look at TV ratings and TV numbers and all that. Those are the big things that are driving all this, is TV money and how much money you can get out of that. Or just the why people would do certain things. We here try to put a rest to a lot of the speculation and the reckless ones at that. But it's really hard because you don't, everything is done in the dark, and with the last 2, you wake up in the morning and people are gone. It wasn't built up. This one's a little bit different with the Pac-12 going on now, because now that you had 2 teams that left and a media deal that's expiring, you see, there's maybe a little bit easier path to follow, but still leads to just wildly reckless speculation that you do have to sift through all over the place.
Yeah, I think just a lot of that, too, though, is just people having fun with it.
Yeah.
That they find the topic interesting and they find realignment interesting. I know not everybody does, but some people do. And, I think we sometimes have to be mindful of, where we're sitting versus somebody else who's not talking about it for 3 hours a day. And so they just hop on Twitter after work and they want to talk about college football, and they find, oh, what's this about Oregon and Washington? And, it can – I think a far bigger problem is – those who find the attention that it brings, and then just
wait for that.
Okay, well that one to me, that's way more of an actual and I don't know how much of a problem it is, but I take far more offense to that than just Joe coming home from the restaurant and saying hey, what have you heard about so and so? Because we got a lot of San Diego State fans that have been interested in. I'll just say this, I don't appreciate the folks who just lie for hits. I don't like that. That's not what we do. We try to, if we're going to talk about something, hopefully there's been some reporting behind it or some backing of it, and there's some legitimacy to it, and it's not just, like you said, totally reckless speculation, completely just throwing whatever out there. I agree with that.
Yeah. Number 3, tribalism. We have this problem in this country anyway, and it's become kind of silly.
Not in college sports, though.
It's been kind of silly. I think of it a lot in the way, once it's all done. So say Colorado and another team come to the Big 12 from the Pac-12. Those people who have been just slamming the Pac-12 for months, it'll be kind of like that scene in Forrest Gump where he was running and all those people were following him, and then he just decided to stop. And the one guy's like, well, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of where you're going to be. Like, okay, great. You won. Your team gets to play Colorado now and Stanford doesn't. What do you do now? Like, like you did all that energy. Did you really win something there? Or it just, and it gets, I don't know, it just gets kind of silly, right? It's very silly.
It's silly, but that's also why we love it, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole thing of college sports is in sports is the tribalism. Like, I think it can get, like when we have the person, randomly off social media who's like defending the SEC schedule, and it's like, oh, that's a level of just stupid tribalism. Because it's like it's an entity. You don't have to defend it, and sometimes it can be wrong. I think that gets to be silly where you just refuse to believe anything other than what you like, and that is a problem in this country, right? Like, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, there's people that have drawn their lines in the sand. I said way back that one of the funniest things to see, or one of the most painful things to see, would be all of those people who are declaring the Pac-12 was dead, and then all of a sudden the Pac-12 shows up one day and announces this grand new deal, and everybody's on board, and like 2 new teams are being added, and like, what would those folks on the other side say? Like, I wondered about that for sure. And then vice versa. Like, there's been plenty of Pac folks who have had their nose in the air and have, that never would happen. And you know what? It might. And how do they react to that? I don't know. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of tribalism involved in these conversations.
Yep. Number 2, repetitive fake news over and over and over again. That gets kind of like, yeah, like just wait for that. Like, what I'll tell everybody is when it happens, it's super interesting and exciting, but let it happen. That's what I think I get kind of tired of. It's like, today's the day. Today's the day. No, it's not the day until it's the day.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that goes to some folks who, are promising something's going to happen, and then it doesn't, and then they just kick the can down the road to the next day and the next day, and then, just trust me, bro. And then it's like 4 months later, and it's like, nope, just around the corner, and like they, just keep you leashed to the updates. But, there's some of that going on. There's also, you don't really know what is and what isn't, too. I mean, unless it's just completely absurd that you can spot it a mile away. I mean, who knows if that, report on Colorado, how much, like, I'm sure there was somebody who saw that and is like, there's no chance in hell. And then here they are a month later, like, oh, wow, that actually might be something. So, you don't really know, and there is a lot of BS out there you have to sift through because, unfortunately, just simply throwing something out there, there's no penalty for it. I mean, unless, I guess, people wise up and just stop following you. But there is definitely, something to just then this is the part of social media I can't stand, but just the impressions. And like, I know we have to deal with that. That's just sort of how everything works now. But I saw somebody bragging about the fact that they were trolling with the way that they do things, and then bragged by showing the amount of impressions and stuff they got from doing that, and didn't see anything wrong with doing that because they got what they wanted in the end. And that just makes me feel gross because
I'm sorry you didn't get hugged.
I don't need it that bad. I don't need the attention or the whatever success that brings. I don't want it that way. And if that means I'm just a lower level, middle of the road dude rather than being on ESPN, I am totally fine with that because I'll sleep okay. But there are other people who just, they need that. And however it comes, and I can't really speak to that because I cannot relate on any single level.
Yep. And that brings us to a nice segue into number 1, fake Twitter journalists. I'm really talking about a couple people here. One of them who I don't even know who he is. But yeah, my sources are telling me this, my sources are telling me that. No, they're not. You don't have sources. You're reading message boards and you're posting things. And you're getting everybody all up in it's a tizzy because you like you said, you like the attention. And again, I'm sorry that you weren't hugged, but please let it go.
Yeah, I guess this is just a byproduct of social media. I don't know. There's definitely some of that, and I think it goes back to what I was just talking about of just the attention that it can bring, no matter how or why or whatever. But I don't know. I think there's also a lot of good people that we've learned about through this process that have become guests on this show or people that we follow along with and all that. there's definitely, some element of the other side of that as well. And just some element of you don't know who's on the other side of that phone or screen typing that and what they're even about. It could be an 8-year-old kid for all we know half the time. Do have to watch out for a lot of the fake stuff and just be wary of those, just trying to get impressions or hits or whatever it was that you call it. And don't believe everything that you read is probably sage advice, old wisdom, and something that we should definitely carry, forward with us is don't believe everything you read necessarily, because there's definitely some tweets out there on any given day that can make you think something's happening that's very clearly not.
All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to